Flamio hot people, and welcome to my wonderful video where I am going to talk about a series that just recently started. Today I have a new webtoon for you. It is done by Don69. Nice. And the story is called Surviving as a Fish. Let me show you the cover. Well, I also need to say this is my thumbnail basically. The cover, because webtoons don't really have a cover, it only shows like a header or like a thing going over the name, and that's only the man and the fish. I just added the ocean in the background for something else to be there. And surviving as a fish makes sense if the fish is the main character. So I don't know who that guy is so far. He might be the antagonist because humans are the antagonists for fish, I assume. But let's just continue onwards. Looking at the cover alone, I predict a nice powered isekai. This time following someone who either reincarnated or just got turned into a fish. It is not the weirdest idea for an isekai. After all, I already read slime isekai, spider isekai, vending machine isekai, hot spring isekai, and so many more. The art style I can see on the cover and the chapter previews are classic webtoon. This story will fit right in on this website. Following a fish will be pretty interesting. After all, most stories take place on land. So if this story will mainly play underwater, it will be a breath of fresh air. Even though saying it like that does sound kind of ironic. We are underwater, so there is no air, or very few. Now, let us read the premise for Surviving as a Fish and see if the fish will one day turn into a dragon, just like the legend of the koi fish. So here is the premise. Could you survive as a fish? Yushin, the president of Saisong Group, is betrayed by his boss and thrown into a lake, left for dead. But a mysterious voice calls out Yushin underwater. Would you like to start a new life? He wakes up to find himself as a slimy, scaly, largemouth bass, tasked with a plethora of quests to fulfill that ultimately promises him one wish. Will Yushin be able to navigate the waters and find a way back to being a human again? As I thought, it is some form of isekai. Well, it's not 100% clear from the premise alone if the story takes place in a fantasy world or if the protagonist is a fish in the real world. Seeing as this webtoon builds on a betrayal from a superior, I can see the protagonist either being a wimp or because he already became a president in like his human life, he might be on a big revenge mission and he isn't the good guy we think he is. There are a lot of things the story can do. At the top of my head, I can't think of another story with a fish as a protagonist, and a water area as the main location is not something you see that often as well. Most of my questions will most likely be answered in the first chapter, but this time, because I am an isekai lover, I will have a more critical perspective on tropes and cliches. I can't say this more than enough. There are really good isekai stories, but the bad and average ones overshadow them, giving the genre a bad reputation. Now, without further ado, let me click on the chapter, read through it very carefully, and then tell you all about it. From now on, I'm going to talk about the events of chapter 1. In the description you can find a link if you want to read yourself first, but I'm going to start right away. Yushin, our protagonist, is the man in the cover but also the fish. He doesn't get any sympathy from me either. I mean, yes, he got kidnapped and then thrown in a lake, left to die, but he wasn't the best human either. As the president of a company, he bosses people around and thinks less about people below him. He doesn't even take some time off to celebrate the birthday of his young daughter. Not really attributes I like in a protagonist. At least he thought about buying a toy for his daughter to make up for his busy schedule, but being in a car crash doesn't make that easier. I don't know how much this human world, his family, and his killer will play a role in the story, even after reading the first chapter. It is not clear if he is in a fantasy world after being turned into a fish, or if he is in the real world. But I guess in the future we will learn that quite quickly. However, what we do know is that he has a status screen, and it doesn't look too promising. Once all across the board. If I had to make a guess, he might use his charisma and abilities he learned from being a president to survive underwater. Well, but that is only going to work if fishes can communicate with each other. Personally, I would enjoy a story in which the protagonist starts up some sort of mercenary company just to survive, and the idea of mercenary fishes is actually quite funny. But it depends on what direction the story will go on. Obviously, there are questions like why did the protagonist get a chance of a second life? Did he have to pick from fishes because he died in water, or is there a different reason as well? What will become of his family, and will his company go bankrupt without him being there? And the biggest question of them all, will Yushin adjust well to a fishy lifestyle? While the protagonist isn't my favorite, I have to say I'm still invested. Isekais have it easier to grab my attention, and it being one of the few isekai I read on Webtoon helps as well. I really hope that this will be a slow growth isekai. Currently we only have 10 chapters, or some more when this video will go live. Or episodes as they are called on Webtoon, but that doesn't matter. Which means I still have some episodes to read after finishing this video, but they are not enough to come to a conclusion, if it will be a slow growth. But I am ready for this fishy adventure, and maybe the protagonist will grow on me as well, like it happened in a few other series I have been reading recently. When giving a score to these first chapters, I try to stay objective, but my personal enjoyment doesn't get completely ignored either. So while I 100% can say I am more interested in surviving as a fish, I also have to say that the chapter in itself wasn't as good as, for example, the first one of Dark Dr. Ikuru, which makes it hard for me to give it a higher score. So to be fair, Surviving as a Fish will get the same score of 6.6 out of 10. Just like every other isekai, the story can reach great heights but also fall into incredibly lows. So what will you do, Don69? Show your abilities, prove yourself. For visualization, I will show you the ranking in a table from now on. So here are our current placements. They seem fair to me, but what do you think? Does one or more series deserve more or less points? Please share your opinions in the comments with me. But you need to remember that these rankings are only for the first chapter, not much more. If future chapters make you like a series more, that's great, but in here we only care about the very beginning. Especially today, I would like to hear your opinions and expectations for Surviving as a Fish. Besides the standard isekai experience, personally I would like to learn more about fishes and their world underwater. Even in our real world, the ocean is one of the biggest mysteries in the world, and I can't wait to explore it. Well, not in the real world, but in this webtoon. As you could see, I am not only going to talk about Shonen Jump and Shonen Jump Plus manga, but also about webtoons. In the recent times, webtoons have improved by leaps and bounds, so the manga scene actually has a competitor now. At least if you ignore Western comics, because I don't like most of their art styles. Just thinking about all the potential stories, I might also add stories from tapas or other official and legal websites. No, not any scans or anything, we're not going there. But I can tell you one thing for sure, the future of this series is endless because there will always be a new series and the country of origin of the story doesn't matter. All we care about here is quality, and only the quality of the first chapter. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video and look forward to the next one. And if you don't want to miss any future videos, please consider clicking on the subscribe button. If you want to hear about another series, why don't you check out this video, it's about one of the newer Shonen Jump manga. That's all from me for today, so see you in the next video, bye!